Thank you, Francis. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us on what is a very sunny and warm day in the UK here. So we're all quite honoured that you've chosen us over the sunshine and the beer garden this afternoon. Myka and I have been asked to run this tools and techniques session today on the back of a post that I put into the community a couple of months ago. That was a screenshot of a Trello board where I shared how I'd started organising all my coaching tools and coaching models. And Myka commented on it with just this amazing amount of organisation that she has. So Francis asked if we would like to run a tools and techniques session. So I'd like to point out at this moment that neither Myka nor I profess to be experts in organisation whatsoever. And you will see a marked difference between how I use technology in organisation and how Myka does as well. So what our intention is for this session is to just share how we organize things, how we organize our systems, and it's an invitation for you to take what you will, be inspired, and there'll be a chance to ask any questions that you have at the end. And I will caveat this that I am by no means a technical whiz whatsoever, so I'm unlikely to be able to answer any technical related questions. Just going to caveat that. So Myka, would you like to introduce yourself, lovely?
Sure. So I am Myka Kennedy Stevens. I joined the BBB community back in April for the spring sprint. I'm founder and CEO of Fosgale, which is a coaching and consulting firm. You can probably tell based on my accent that I am based in the United States in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which is in the mid-Atlantic region of the US. Prior to becoming an executive coach and consultant, I served as a library director and faculty member at a small graduate theological school. And towards the end of my tenure there, I wrote a book on integrating strategic planning and program assessment in dynamic and iterative ways. So ever since my childhood, my mom introduced me to a paper-based day planner when I was 11 years old. And since then, I've just enjoyed exploring and dreaming up new organizational systems. So then it kind of made sense when I became a librarian, I got to do that for a living and then carried it over into my coaching. So as Ellie said, we're here to kind of give you an overview of what some organizational systems are out there and how we've combined different tools to give ourselves some organization in our businesses, and offer you some encouragement to explore and find ways to bring some organization into your coaching and your businesses. So we thought we'd start off with an overview of the different types of systems and tools that are out there that you might run into. Categorize them into kind of large groupings. The first being to-do lists. So how many of you just love checking things off of a to-do list, or you are constantly making those to-do lists and want to check off and cross off? I'm seeing some nods. I'm seeing some head shaking. For those who enjoy that type of organization and task-oriented work, you might be familiar with some of these apps that help you manage a to-do list on electronically. So core features of some of these are that you can create lists of tasks. A lot of them even accommodate multiple lists. So you're not dumping all of your tasks into one list. You can have a list for your coaching, or a list for each client even, or a list for your professional development, for example. In each task, you can add descriptions, notes, attachments. You can even break tasks into subtasks that can be checked off individually. You can assign due dates to these, sync it up with a calendar. You can set up recurring tasks, so tasks that repeat regularly. I'm a fan of doing this with the tasks that I want to keep track of, like exercising or cleaning different parts of my house, setting those up on a recurring schedule so that I remember and don't have to recreate it myself every time I complete it. You can also use them to track progress toward completion. So if you've got a task that will take multiple days to complete and it's hanging out on your to-do list, you can still mark, oh, well, I've done 20% of it, or I've done 50% of it, so that at least you can have some kind of visual encouragement that even though you haven't ticked it off the list yet, you are making progress towards your goal. And then again, having multiple task lists and also the ability to use tags to create organization within your lists. So a few to-do list apps that you might already have access to or might want to check out are TickTick, Todoist, Things, Microsoft To Do, Apple Reminders, Google Tasks. There's many others. These are some of the top ones. Next category are project management apps. So these are apps that kind of take that to-do list concept, but take it another step further. They're scalable for individuals and teams. So if you're working collaboratively with other coaches or doing a mixture of consulting work or other types of portfolio work with your coaching where you want to integrate and bring other people into your work, these are apps that can help you do that, because you can set up workspaces and share access to that workspace with other people. You can then assign tasks to certain people. It also offers most of these offer a collaborative space, so you can chat or you can attach files, you can organize different notes and things all within the task, and it's all in one place. So you're not having to try and do all of that collaboration on email on one side and then have all of your project stuff in the platform on the other side. You can bring it all into the platform. All of these listed here, Trello, Asana, Monday, ClickUp, and Open Project, do have limited free tier plans. So almost all Open Project is an open source platform. So if you had the technical ability to set that up and run it on your own server, you could do that for free. But if you want to use Open Projects hosting and support setup, then you would have to pay for that part as well. And then the others have a very limited free tier, but if you want extra features, you often have to pay for one of their paid levels. Also, because it's project management, there's usually a little more time investment in that initial setup. So that's, a to-do list, you can just start listing tasks. With project management, trying to think ahead about the different projects you are trying to manage and how you want to set that up usually takes a little bit more time on the front end. But once you get it set up, they're awesome. All of these are really awesome apps. Next category are digital notebooks. So like to-do lists, digital notebooks have been around for a while. So apps like OneNote, Evernote, Apple Notes, Google Keep, these are places where you can kind of keep, record and keep digital notes, and they have increased in their capacity and ability over the years, giving you organizational features so that your notes just aren't in one big bucket. You can organize them. They all are based on a hierarchical structure. So you kind of put them into a notebook or a folder. And then within that, you can have separate tabs or subfolders where you organize your notes. But if you envision, a binder, a 3-ring binder where you've got loose leaf paper, and that's where how you would organize your notes within, tabbed divider sections. This is the electronic version of that. All of these apps allow you to synchronize across multiple devices, so you can access your notes on your computer, on your phone, on your tablet, pretty much just any internet-enabled device. It is, because these all kind of grew out of text-based note-keeping, they're all very textual in that way, or text-centered. But they do have and support the ability to embed images and other types of files, documents, PDFs, movies, even any kind of file you can usually embed in these digital notebooks. And then the next category, kind of taking the digital notebook to the next level, we've got digital Zettelkasten. So that is a German word that basically means card file, I think. My son is the one who's fluent in German, so I rely on him for my German pronunciation and translation. But this Zettelkasten method grew out of Niklas Luhmann's systems theory. I'll let you go Google that on your own. But basically, this is the idea that you can have a digital card file knowledge base where you've got different short notes and they're organized without hierarchy. So it's taking the hierarchy that's in the digital notebook realm and kind of setting that to the side and saying, here, let's do something different. And the organization kind of emerges more naturally through the connections and the links that you create between your different notes and your different files. You can link notes in more than one place, link notes to more than one other note. And the meaning and the organization kind of emerges through those interconnections that you create as you build your Zettelkasten. So features of apps that support this method are the linking. That's a big feature. Also this concept of kind of a more fluid file organization. And also these are able to more easily and more completely combine different types of information in their organization. So two apps that are really well known for this are Obsidian and Notion. Some other helpful tools, digitally, these are the ones that just didn't kind of fit into a big category, but Airtable is a platform that you can use to build your own relational database to do just about anything. So you can use it to create a CRM, you can use it to create a budget tracking app for yourself, you can use it to create just about anything. Dubsado is a client resource management app that you might find interesting. And Zotero is a personal library database that's helpful for collecting and organizing books, articles, web pages, any resources that you come across as part of your professional development. On the paper side of things, a commonplace book, and that's a tool for collecting and organizing information by hand. So kind of taking just, a regular notebook up to another level where you're actually intentionally like numbering pages and organizing, tracking what you put in that book so that it makes it easier to recall and use it as a resource. And a hybrid paper digital solution that we have to offer is a Rocketbook, which is a reusable notebook that comes with an erasable pen. You can wipe the pages clean, scan what you write. That converts it into a PDF that you can upload and incorporate into whatever other tool or system that you're using. And then you wipe the pages clean and you can reuse it again, so you're not consuming paper. So now that we've given you a very quick overview of some of the tools that are out there, we thought we would share more specifically about the systems that we've developed for ourselves. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Ellie so she can share with you about her system.
Thank you so much, Myka. So if anybody's listened to that, like I have, and gone, whoa, there's a lot. There's a lot of information there. And Myka and I have been through all of this before. I'm going to bring you right back down to earth with the most simple kind of entry point, because that's where I am. That's where I'm at. A lot of my organization tools are just very simple and kind of straightforward and very much entry level. you might call me something of a Luddite, but it works for me, and which so I'm just going with it. Myka, could you just flip onto the next screen for me, please? Lovely. Super. So I use Trello, which is one of the digital apps that Myka was talking about before. It's fairly well known, Trello. I like it because it is quite simple and I use it in a very simple, basic level. But it's very visual and I work much better at a visual space. I'm able to color coordinate the different areas, which draws me to it. So this is an example. This is sort of the home space, the home screen that I have when I log on to Trello, and it has, you can have up to 10 free workspaces. So you might be able to see here that I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, haven't I? So I've got 9 workspaces, and these are just like little pockets that I have in my brain. So what I was finding, I was all of the stuff on these workspaces I was trying to hold in my head or had in random bits of notebooks all over the place. And it's just getting increasingly more difficult for me to remember and access the information. So if you tap into each of these workspaces, you get a way to log the information. So some of the pros of having Trello that I find is that you can have up to 10 boards on the free plan, which is really quite generous, I think. It's really visual, so it can work well if you're a visual learner or you work better visually. You can move the cards around. So when we go to the next screen in a minute, I'll show you the different cards that you can move around and the lists. So if you like a to-do list and you like to see your progress, you can move stuff around. And you can also share your boards with collaborators. So the one on there that says Elevate with Ellie Action Plan, that's one that was shared with my virtual assistants last year. So we were both on the same page and could see where the tasks were up to. Some of the things that aren't so great for Trello, let me just move these out of the way. You can be at risk of information overload and end up with boards everywhere, which I've already started to do. So for me, it's quite handy that it's limited to 10 boards. Otherwise, there'd be 30 on there with just a random idea in each one. So it's forced me to think about which kind of bucket, as it were, to put it in. So it could get to be quite overload and you forget what you put in each one. And it's not great if you're looking for advanced features and integrations, as far as I'm aware. I haven't got anywhere near advanced features and integration, to be honest. It works for me as it is, but I think if you wanted to scale it up, I don't think this is the best space for that. I think some of the other tools that Myka mentioned are much better for that when you're trying to integrate lots of different apps and things with it. Myka, could you go into the next page for me, please? Right, so this one is an example of if you clicked in those workspaces that we had before, if you clicked into the coaching tools one, this is what appears for me. So you've got the columns going down are the lists, and the little sort of boxes, as it were, within are the cards. So what you can do is you can move these cards along and flip them around. I like the different color coding. And so for me, with all of the different I'm sure, as we're all coaches, all the different coaching models and tools you can have, it can be quite overwhelming to try and remember what they are. So I've put them all in the one place because they were all in different notebooks. So it's much easier for me if I'm planning a workshop, if I'm going in to do a proposal for somebody, if I'm preparing for a coaching session, or even for content management, to be honest, if there's something that I wanted to talk about. This is my go-to place now, so I can have a look at all of the different models and the little tools, and it's much easier because it's also, there's an app I have on my phone as well as on my laptop, so it's just easier accessible as I'm going along. Myka, could you just flip on to the next one for me, please? Thank you. So this one is the action plan that I drew your attention to before, and this is another feature of Trello where you can see that there's some of the to-do lists of sorry, the lists say to do, work in progress, done, and the little boxes on there, you can actually move them along, so you can move them along so you can track your progress. This they're color coordinated, so you can easily see whereabouts you are in the process. There's dates on there, so they have to be done by a certain date. So it just makes them really versatile. And so this one, because I was collaborating with someone else, it was easy for us to both work on the same sort of tasks and move it along. To say it's quite a simple process, but that kind of works for me and the way that my brain operates. And it might be interesting to note that I was first introduced to Trello about 5 years ago, and it didn't work for me at all. I couldn't figure out how to use it. It didn't work, but it's only maybe in the last 3 or 4 months I've come back to it. So I would say don't necessarily write off any of these tools if you start them first off and they don't work for you. do come back and just see if they work as you kind of moved along. If you want to flip over for me again, Myka, please. Thank you. And then this is probably still my favorite, even though it's it doesn't always work particularly well in the digital age. Just good old-fashioned pen and paper. When it's coming to organizing thoughts, I find this is my go-to. Everything for me starts with pen and paper, and then I'll transfer it into the digital realm, if need be. So the pros of pen and paper from my point of view is it's really therapeutic, and you can engage your whole body. I like that motion of moving the pen against the paper. For me, it helps with the way that my brain works. It can really help with creativity, and there's limitless options to how you want to tailor it. I think the thing for me with digital options is because I can never quite find something that does everything that my brain wants it to. So sometimes I find it just easier to start with pen and paper to organize my thoughts. It's nice and tactile, especially if you use like post-it notes and things. You can it's tactile, you can move things around. So it's really visual and versatile, or as visual and versatile as you want it to be. Again, like me, I go everywhere with 5 different colored pens because I like the different pens to highlight things. And some of the digital options, things like, is it Rocketbook you mentioned, Myka? I know that here we have Remarkable, and that's only in like black and white, so you can't change the colors. Some of the cons, it can be difficult to remember where you've stored the information, which is what I do all of the time. You don't have access to it as easily as digital management system, unless I wanted to take my 25 notebooks around with me all of the time. It's not quite as easy to find it. It could get lost or damaged. Before now, I've knocked a bottle of water or something all over notebooks and stuff's gone. And obviously there's no integration or sharing options unless you're going to take a photograph of what you've written and send it somewhere. But I often find that that's determined by my handwriting as to whether anyone can understand it. So there's pros and cons to both. It's just personal choice. If you flip over again for me, Myka, thank you. And then I just thought I'd share the way that I organize with pen and paper. When it comes to things like to-do lists and trying to get things out of my head, I start with a brain dump on A4 paper. So everything that's in my head goes on paper, or sometimes post-it notes. It depends how busy my head is. Then I'll transfer that onto a weekly to-do list, depending on where my energy levels are and deadlines. So I'll take stuff off the master list and plot them into my weekly to-do list. I don't necessarily have to move everything over. It's just what I feel somatically, I feel more drawn to on that week based on my energy or deadlines that I have to meet. And you'll see I picked this to-do list particularly because there's only a few little spaces in there. Because if I kept to the A4 brain dump, I would make myself complete all 500 like to do like tasks on there. So I force myself to make it really small so that it's more achievable. And I also have a whiteboard and post-it notes so I can move them around. So it's basically like it's like a Trello board that I can use tactically. Because again, I quite like working that way. So I use both of the two. I use the digital Trello and I use pen and paper interchangeably, depending on my mood and what I've got on. So that's a little overview of how I use those systems. I think that's it from me, Myka. I think it's over to you again now. Oh, I think you're still muted, lovely.
Yeah, thanks, Ellie. So like Ellie, I have a kind of a mishmash combined approach and a little bit of background. So when I was a library director, I used Asana heavily with Microsoft OneNote. So I kept all of our planning projects, all of my collaboration with my staff in Asana. And then I had all of my personal notes, records of things that had happened, notes, ideas, all sorts of things in Microsoft OneNote. So when I switched over and was building my business, I thought, okay, well, these are the two tools that have worked for me. I can just use those in my business. Well, it turned out Asana did a little too much for me, and Microsoft OneNote didn't do quite enough. So, of course, this prompted me to go explore and try different things. So this is what I have landed on. With OneNote not being enough, I switched over to Obsidian. So that digital Zettelkasten method or idea, I'm still coming to terms with that shift of thinking that needs to happen from having organized all of my notes hierarchically in the past to this idea of, okay, notes can be just anywhere and then I link them. Um, so, so it's still, it's freeing. I found it to be very freeing. And I feel like I'm still discovering the power and the potential that it offers. So here you see a screenshot of just kind of my Fosgale notebook vault for Obsidian. The graph view, that's one of the features of Obsidian. Each one of those little dots is a note file in my Obsidian, and the lines that connect them are the links, or how they're linked. So the bigger dots are the ones that are linked in more notes. The smaller dots, and then of course I have a bunch of dots that aren't linked to anything at all. You can even color code those dots. So you can say, I want these types of notes to be this color. I want these types of notes to be another color. Or I want the notes in this folder to be this color. So anyhow, so that explains a little bit of that. And I think it's really cool because it kind of looks like, I feel it kind of looks like a brain, right? And all these, all the connections, it's like our little neural pathways of what connects different ideas in different parts of our brain. The big reason why I switched, or a big pro for me, why I switched to Obsidian, was because the file storage system for the notes is fully integrated with the file storage system on your computer. So I can open up, I use a Mac, so I can open up Finder and I can go to my Fosgale notebook file directory in my documents folder. And I see over here where you see this list of the hierarchy of folder names, I can see each one of those folders in my Finder on my Mac. So what this allows me to do, though, is if there's something that I need to keep in a spreadsheet, I can still put that spreadsheet in the same organizational system. I still have access to it. So this even becomes like a second file directory structure. When I click on the name of the spreadsheet, it will open up in my spreadsheet program for me. So it's this kind of seamless connection between all of the files that I need to keep for my business and where I also keep all of my records and my notes and my ideas. So that was a big, big thing for me. It also supports, there's a built-in template feature. So I have created templates for like a client profile. I've built a template for a coaching session. And so every time I create a new note to start with a new client or start with a new coaching session, I can apply that template. And so it's already got all my spaces for, here are my reminders for everything I need to do for my session. Here's a place where I can put in notes for my preparation. Here's where I put in a summary after I've finished the session. And here's a place where I put in my reflection on my coaching, as I reflect after I meet with a client. So that's been a huge help too, to just have those templates already built in, and creating a library of those. Obsidian also has this ridiculously huge repository of plugins that you can choose from for all different kinds of modes of work. So the Kanban boards that Ellie was showing you in Trello, there's a Kanban board plugin for Obsidian where I can create pretty much the same thing right in Obsidian with cards that I can, create lists with cards, or I can create cards and move them to the different columns. Works just the same way. They've also got plugins that I have found particularly helpful are ones to do mind maps, to create drawings. So, where you can really, create different shapes and draw lines and bring in images and create just about anything, draw on the screen. You can also display data from different files. So one of the things in my template for client, my client profile, is a little piece of code that will create a list of all of this notes from all of our sessions. So anytime I create a new note for a session, Obsidian sees that and then adds that link automatically in their profile note. So their profile note then becomes this automatically updating table of contents, where I can click and go to different things if I'm revisiting work that I've done with a client. The downside to Obsidian is that if you want to synchronize it across multiple devices, there is an added cost involved, and that cost is either going to be monetary or it's going to be your time. I've opted for the cost of time, but Obsidian does offer a subscription to synchronize to their cloud, which then offers you synchronization to your mobile devices or other computers if you choose. They also, it's natively built in. It can work with iCloud. So if you're part of the Apple Mac universe, you can use iCloud, but then again, too, you would also, if depending on your iCloud storage, you might find yourself wanting to purchase a subscription for more iCloud storage if you're going to synchronize there. So again, I opted for time, being that I've got my own processes that involve either an open source synchronization application, or I use just a USB drive that I can then plug into my tablet to synchronize. I already mentioned that the whole Zettelkasten thing is a shift in thinking. And then notes, Obsidian uses a language called Markdown. And so when you use text and you write your notes, you're using Markdown, which is a markup language similar to HTML or XML. That can be a learning curve for some people. For other people, it might not be that big of a deal. Some of the shortcuts for bold and italics and all of that still work on your keyboard, so you don't have to learn that, you have to put asterisks or special brackets around your text. But that's just something to be aware of. And Obsidian, just as it comes, does a lot of things, but you'll want to use plugins to really get the most out of it. So again, using plugins, installing those, managing those can also present a learning curve for some folks. On the project management side, I said Asana was a bit too much, so I scaled back and just went with a to-do list application. And the one that I chose was TickTick. This is a screenshot of one of my TickTick lists for doing my business operations, tracking the things that I need to do. So I sort my tasks into lists. I use tags and I can color code my tags. I really like TickTick because it gave me a lot of different options for recurring tasks. So I can set up a task to repeat either based on the due date, based on a specific day in the month or the week, or I can set it to repeat after a certain number of days when I checked it off. So that I found helpful. I like that it has integrations and extensions for both email and apps or web browsers. So like I can create a task in TickTick straight from my email. So if I get an email that I want to convert into something to do, I can create the TickTick task right there, and it includes a link to the email when I do that. So then in the description of the task, if I need to go back to the email, I just click the link and it takes me back to my email, which is really helpful. And TickTick also supports and has desktop and mobile apps for all operating systems. So I had originally started with Apple reminders, but because my laptop uses a different operating system, I wanted something that I could use across both, and which that was another reason why I chose TickTick. The free plan, you're limited to only 9 lists. So I had to get a little creative in how I set up those lists, and have used all 9 of my 9 lists. They offer calendar view and calendar integration if you get their paid plan, which I haven't done. You can also, if you had a paid plan, you could do task duration, which means you could designate a start date as well as a due date for it, which is somewhat frustrating, but I have figured out a way to use the progress bar. But even with progress, if I'm using progress on a recurring task, unfortunately, it doesn't reset the progress when it creates the repeat task. So if I have completed something to 50%, check it off, when it recreates the new task, it says that I've already done it at 50%, which isn't usually true. So that's a little annoying, but I use the free plan, so I feel like I can't complain too much. Very quickly, another tool that I use is Zotero. So this comes from my library and academic faculty background. This is a tool that is really designed for researchers, academics, students, but I think it's just a really helpful life organizing tool, for professional development. You can, it's got a plugin for your browser, so you can use when you're browsing, looking at websites, blogs, whatever, you can click a little button on your browser and it will send the information about that resource directly to your Zotero library. You can organize your library into different folders. So this, what you're seeing here is my coaching folder. So these are all the resources that I've pulled together. You can see I've highlighted Francis's resource on starting with the numbers. So that's in my Zotero library. It has, the other thing I like about it, it has a built-in PDF viewer that's got really good annotation tools, and it's one of the best PDF viewers that works on my iPad. With annotation tools on the iPad. And I like that the cloud storage that you get with a free Zotero account is 300 megabytes, which might not sound like a lot, but when you're talking about text files, you can really get a lot of text files into 300 megabytes, and that will synchronize your files across multiple devices. Of course, you can also tell it that you don't want it to synchronize the attachments. You just want to synchronize the records, and that will help you keep your storage down, storage use down as well. It is a dated interface and it's not terribly intuitive, so that might be some drawbacks to the system. But if you're interested in learning more on Zotero, I could talk about this for a whole hour. So I'm going to move on now. And so finally, the last piece of my system is that tactile piece. So like Ellie, there's some things, even with all of these tech tools, you just can't replicate what you get with pencil and paper. So this is my commonplace book. And I also have started using a Rocket book in the last few months. So my commonplace book is an A5 size. I like that because it's small enough I can fit it in my handbag and take it with me wherever I go. So it's got ultimate portability. It's tactile, it's kinesthetic, gives you an opportunity to think without looking at a screen. And as much time as we spend on our screens these days, I think we cannot overstate how important it is to have time away from the screens. Using paper and pencil or pen or markers, highlighters, whatever you want to use, it promotes your creative expression. It enhances your spatial memory as well, because you've got that mind-body connection of where you've recorded something, and that helps with your memory. And then of course with Rocketbook, when you use the app to scan what you've written, it creates that PDF. You can then incorporate those into your notebook. I use it to incorporate into my Obsidian Vault. So I can either just have the PDF as it is, or I can embed the PDF into a note file. One of the things that I found challenging for me and for my personality about the Commonplace book is planning enough blank pages. So, when you know, okay, I'm going to put, this is the section where I'm going to talk about this piece of coaching, or this is the section where I'm going to now put in all of the information that I know about editing images, because I have to do that if I'm going to do social media. Um, Planning enough blank pages is a challenge. And then, of course, if you run out of blank pages in the section that you've planned, then you have to start a new section that's later on in the book, which, in the table of contents, you can just note, okay, it's, coaching is on pages 22 to 28, comma, 36 to 40, so there's a way, you're creating an index of where those notes are, but I don't know, it still feels a little all over the place to me because it's time-based organization. But it's, again, that's a small thing compared to the benefit that you get from actually engaging your body and your mind together to create these notes. So yeah, so we've got a few tips here. Ellie, do you want to take over
Thank you.
sharing our
Yeah.
collective tips that we came up with to encourage you for creating
I'll
your
give
own
you a
system?
break. There was so much amazing information in there. Thank you, Myka. You can, flip onto the next screen then, and I'll go through some of the tips. So, as we're coaches, we're not going to tell you what to do. We're going to invite you to think about this and just know yourself when it comes to organisation. Take a bit of time to think what has worked for you in the past and what hasn't. Um, and what format and medium do you prefer working in? You might have noticed from between Myka and my approach, we approach things very differently based on the way that we like to work. And there is no right or wrong, it's just what works for you. What kind of learner are you? I talked about being quite visual and quite tactile. I like to kind of move things around. And what are your current habits? Um, so thinking about things like this will help you to identify what might work for you. And I've just added in there as well, as I mentioned before, don't write off systems that haven't worked for you in the past, because your needs may have changed. So you can try some tools again. So that links back to what has worked for you in the past and what hasn't worked. Don't necessarily write them off if they haven't worked previously. Um, what apps and tools do you really like to use now? Um, how do you want your apps to talk to each other? Me personally, I don't want any of my apps to talk to each other because I don't understand how to fix them, how to set them up. So I prefer them not to talk to each other. But from what Myka's been saying, she's definitely inspired me to look into that option to just save a little bit of time and headspace. What devices do you want or need to use with the system that you create? And be clear about what needs aren't being met by your current system. So maybe don't create something just for the sake of it. What needs do you actually have? I think the best bit here is mix and match. You can see Mike and I use different options depending on what it is that we're looking to use or to fulfill different needs as humans. So combine different solutions to meet your unique needs and try more than one medium, as we both do. And there is no one app or solution that will do everything that you need or want. Software companies niche too, so they drill down on what they're really good at and stay at that. And I think that was probably one of the things that I've fallen into the trap of before. I've been looking for one particular app that's going to solve all of the problems, and there just isn't one. So use what works for you and mix and match. Being bold and try something, yeah, setting a trial period for a new app or tool. And we've both pointed out that a lot of these digital apps do come with a free trial period. Either that's a limited number of options that you have or a limited period of time. And so trial it, see how it goes. Make sure if it is a limited amount of time that you have the time to make, you have the available space and sort of headspace to make use of that trial period. Just experiment, just gather a bit of data, just play around with it, see what works for you. Keeping a journal of what you like and don't like is really helpful as well. And then it might help you to identify which systems work best for you. And at the end of the trial, review your notes and assess whether to keep that particular interface or to try something different. Myka, is that the end of them? Yeah, so it's time for us to stop talking at you now, and invite any questions that you may have, or even just share things that work particularly well for you that you would like to let other people know of.
Francis mentioned in the chat about Zapier.
Oh, it's
So I haven't played around with Zapier a lot. So Francis, you want to share a little bit more about that?
Sure. Do you want to stop the screen share and we can go into the gallery mode just so we can all chat?
Trying to.
Okay, no worries.
Has it stopped yet? No.
I'll just do while you're doing it. No, it hasn't. I'll find my Zapier.
I just have a share.
It might let me stop it. Hold on a second. There we go.
Did that stop
Okay.
it?
Well, does anyone know what Zapier is? Is it worth me screen sharing or not? It doesn't really matter. I won't bother to screen share because it'll take up valuable time that people can chat. But basically, Zapier is an automation system that I think we pay for, but very minimally. What I use it for is, I'll give you some examples. When somebody downloads starting with the numbers or the marketing plan from the Better Budge Braver website, there is a Zap set up so that they join Drip, which is our email platform. They get an email from me that says thank you for downloading it. Let me know how you get on. When people fill in my pricing questionnaire, they will get it will send me an email because I've integrated it with my Gmail that sends me their answers so that I can then have a conversation with them about the answers. When people leave the community, I have a Zap that takes them off things that they shouldn't be getting. So et cetera. So what you can do is once you're very clear of the journey that you want to take your ideal clients on and what you think the next step that they need to go on in the journey of consciousness is, you can set up a series of Zaps that automate that experience for them. So you're not having to constantly create a to-do list and then revisit it every time a new person comes to follow you or be in your sort of sphere. But you can make sure that clearly you need to think first about what it is you want them to. So for example, recently I had a bit of an issue because I've only just opened and shut the community doors, as you guys all know. And there was a period of time where I had switched on the approve process, but I had forgotten to message people that had registered to join the community to say, I've seen that you're here, don't worry, I'll approve you on the day. And I've now set that up using Zapier, but I lost a couple of people because it was too long since they'd registered an interest to when the doors actually opened. So I think with a lot of things in marketing as a coach, particularly because the feeling seen, heard, understood, and sort of noticed is really important for us to think about with regards to our ideal clients. We need to be quite clear as to what kind of experience we want them to have. And automation can really help with that, so that you don't let anyone be forgotten and you don't yourself have to be remembering the whole time what it is that you're doing with a person. Otherwise, it can become incredibly overwhelming and you can't take a step away and think, what is it that I'm actually trying to achieve here? Yeah.
Thanks, Francis. I have Zapier on when people book onto my networking events, it connects to MailerLite that then sends them a thank you email to say thank you, welcome to the networking event. So it's just it is really handy. Anyone else got any questions or anything they want to share?
Yeah, I use, as I put in the notes, I use Notion a lot. And it works quite well for me because I sort of do a few different things, and I'm sure a lot of us do. So you can have different boards for it, and also you can link it to your calendar really easily, and you can have all your calendars in one place, which I know you can do in Google as well, but I don't think it links quite as neatly in between tasks and things like that. And that's all on the free one, I think. There probably is a paid version of Notion, but you know, what more do you need really? And I think AI as well, ChatGPT does sort of we'll be able to do more and more of this soon as well. So yeah, and then it's made me write down the programs that I use actually, which is quite interesting. And some of them, so you know, Google Business Notion, ChatGPT, Session Labs, I really like. I don't know if anyone uses Session Lab. It's basically a platform where you can design workshops, and it does all the timings for you. You can highlight it, and you can like download it into PowerPoint to create slides for you. It's really good, and I use that when I'm facilitating a lot. And then with that, I also use Miro. I imagine a lot of you have probably heard of Miro, which is really good. And there's is it Mural as well, isn't it, Julia? Yeah, it's the other one. So yeah, they're just a couple of things that I sort of use, which I thought I'd share as well.
Thank you for that, Cherry.
Yeah, thank you.
We could make this, Myka, we could have made this like a half day.
I was going to say,
download, couldn't it?
I was having an idea actually, apropos things that people can do to experience. I am really tempted to actually chuck this out there publicly, where I would not normally put a tools and techniques recording out there, because it's one of the benefits of the community that community members get access to these recordings and people who are not in the community don't. But this was such a profoundly good one. Like, I was smiling a lot of the time. I don't know exactly why, but it's something very heartwarming about you guys naming a lot of the problems that I think people are having and don't know quite, that they're not conscious of having that as a challenge. And so I was thinking I'll talk to you offline if you're comfortable about that. I need to check here though, if anybody has if you feel a discomfort about us more publicly kind of sharing this video, albeit for a sort of limited amount of time, please let me know another time. But I just wanted to say thank you, because this is such a great subject. I'm really curious to know how the two of you would talk more openly or confidently about this being such an important part of your work as coaches, because I don't see a lot of coaches talking out loud about how they can help people with such kind of practical organizational skills. But I think this workshop is testament to how able you both are to kind of bring this into your coaching. I don't know if you do or not, but it seems like some gold dust that you guys have that I haven't seen that much of. So I just thought I'd say that.
Thanks, Frances. It's interesting. I was messaging someone earlier and saying that I found it quite hard to do anything in this, because it's so innate to me to be organised, that to actually get it out of my head and explain what I do and how my thought process is was, I don't know, I find that really hard. I help people intuitively to do it, but I find it hard to write it down. I don't know about you, Myka.
Yeah, I find that I think all of us have very unique ways of thinking and organizing information. And so, you know, the way in which I organize information so that it makes sense to me doesn't necessarily suit another person. And so, yeah, so I find I don't talk a lot about how I organize myself. I just talk more about what I learn about organizing things as a way of kind of helping people think about how they organize things. Yeah.
Thank you. I've just seen Julia said that you used Paperbell. Was it coaching app?
So early when I was doing my coaching training, I was also working full time and doing another course, a yoga teacher's training at the same time. So I signed up for Paperbell, and it was really helpful in terms of automating the coaching client journey. So all the onboarding, the contracting, the scheduling, the payments, client files, managing GDPR and privacy and things like that. It's a really good app. For me, where it fell down was it doesn't do invoicing. So it's got reporting in there in terms of logging your coaching hours and how much money you're making. But because I'm doing some corporate work, which is off system, it kind of didn't quite work for me. But definitely worth looking at. It's quite affordable for a monthly subscription.
Thank you, Julia. Frances, should we add just some of these to the notes when it's been when you publish this, or just
Yeah, I would love, I mean, in an ideal world, I would really like that even if this doesn't form part of your coaching process, that you two take some of the things that you've taken the time to put together for this presentation and produce something that people can see and use as a list of things that have been mentioned and that you have suggested people might like to consider. Because even if they don't get you holding their hand through it as part of your coaching, I think it's a really good indication, as you say, of the value of organisation and the fact that you two don't just say it, you have done something about it yourselves. So I would like to push it back to you and say, could you produce something that both I can share that includes what Julia just said, but also that you two can use for yourselves, because you've done so much work for this, you might as well, I think, capitalize on it somehow and repurpose the effort that you've taken, time you've taken. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, mindful of time because we like to finish these promptly. And thank you all for being here. Sarah, it's a great pleasure to meet you. This is your first Better, Bolder, Braver experience. So welcome. There's people here who are new and there's plenty of people here who've been here a while. So we look forward to seeing you at the next get together. And thank you again to Ellie and Myka. It's absolutely wonderful what you've done, really quite moving. I don't know why. It's because I don't know if Kieran's still listening, because I'm an Enneagram 7. I go to 5 and that's my very happy place. 5, Enneagram 5 being a bit like a librarian. And it's just made me feel very calm to be here listening to what you're saying. So thank you. And yeah, to everyone listening to this on repeat, if you've got any questions or you think Ellie can, Myka can help you,